Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to April's edition of the Industry IoT Virtual Workshop Series. Today we are joined by Anne-Michelle Boland, who is the Chief Innovation Officer from Intertek, along with Richard Norris, who is Vice President of Data Analytics. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Dan. Happy to be here.
As most of you guys know that have joined these sessions previously, Anne-Michelle will do a screen share, so we'll run through a PowerPoint presentation. We have 60 minutes. There's plenty of time for the initial presentation and Q&A to follow. If anyone has any questions throughout the session, at the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A chat room. Just click on the tab, it'll open up and you can ask questions. I will prompt Anne-Michelle and Richard if questions are posted throughout the presentation, but we'll leave some time for the Q&A towards the end in any case. So over to you, Anne-Michelle.
Great, thank you, and welcome everyone. I am Anne-Michelle Boland. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for Intertek, a global quality and safety assurance provider. And today I want to talk about four things. The first is kind of the opportunities around innovation for us and actually for all of us on the call. Some of the challenges we face, particularly as a global organization, and then how we've approached those challenges in the innovation process tools, templates that we've created. And then finally, what some of those innovations actually look like to give you a sense for how it comes to reality in our structure. I'm joined today by colleague Rich Norris, who is part of our business assurance team. And so he will be assisting some of the Q&A and as well as providing some of the details around one particular innovation and then helping me if I forget anything that I intended to say. So welcome everybody, and let's jump right in. I actually have the full capability of talking nonstop for 60 minutes. So please feel free to jump in. I much prefer an interactive conversation, but if not, I will definitely fill the time. So innovation, one of the key aspects to innovation is to have an icon. And at Intertek, we're quite lucky because one of our founders is actually Thomas Edison, one of the best innovators, most prolific innovators of our time. And he actually started one of the companies that makes up Intertek today. And we have lots of quotes from him over time, and I thought this was appropriate for the session today. So, but an icon really helps, or some moniker, as you go about setting up your innovation approach to let people rally around in the organization, and Edison is ours. So what's our overall vision? So one of the another key element of our innovation program is that it's tied directly to our corporate vision to make the world a safer place. Purpose, our vision, our values, all of these are an embedded part of where we start when we start talking to our teams, our customers, our network of partners and vendors. We tie it always back to our corporate vision and values. Opportunities. So this may look like a sales presentation at the beginning. It is not. I'm just trying to give you guys context on how we think about where we want to innovate as a company and how we frame innovation for our teams around the group. So first is the trading landscape. 50 years ago, about 25% of global GDP was via trade. In the current century, it's more than 60%. So the landscape has changed for all of us globally. And that means that corporations are facing a lot more complexity, as you all well know, in the supply chain space. The supply and distribution networks are ever more complicated, and it's really hard to know who your ultimate suppliers are and how products and services are being managed throughout that supply chain. So lots more diversity in the world today and how we're managing organizations. Then if you look at technology change and the pace of that change, and well, not just technology, but driven by technology, so artificial intelligence, cybercrime, EV, electric vehicles expansion, growth of solar power, which will be replacing many of our other mechanisms for power in the near future. blockchain, what to do with that. All of these, the rise of millennials in the organization. All of these things are driving a lot more opportunities for companies, but also challenges for companies as they look to migrate to more sustainable business practices. So lots and lots of change accelerating both in the structure of organizations, but also everything happening around organizations today. And I know I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. And then in terms of our specific business, structural growth drivers for our industry include expansion of brands. If you think about the brands of tomorrow, you've got lots of the crowdsourced brands coming up, just totally internet-based. That changes the both quantity of production runs for those for the manufacturers supporting them. It also changes the accessibility of those brands to some of the more brick and mortar stores, Macy's, Marks and Spencer. They were limited previously by their capacity in their physical location, but now through online marketing, they have the opportunity to really expand and support a much broader variety of brands, as an example. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but as you can see, there's lots of opportunities for our company, and yours I'm sure as well, to innovate based on these changes in the overall markets. So what do we do with those? So where do we begin? How do we prioritize, and really who's accountable? So we break innovation down into 3 different buckets, which is not rocket science. This is fairly common across other industries, but innovating from the core. So how do we take what we do today and expand it in logical areas? Innovating in adjacent segments. So how do we take our products and services today, and I'm going to give you some examples of this in a bit, and take them into new markets, new product types, new service areas that are not in the core set of our customers or our services today, but are an easy extension. And then what are those breakthroughs that are just new, different services for our industry, either based on things that we can do to change the way we operate, or new areas that our customers are facing. So this is an intent to try and frame the innovations based on risk and ease of implementation. So if you're extending what you do at the core, your basic services that you do today, that's a lot less risky, a lot more opportunity to get implementations much more quickly, get the benefits of those new innovations a lot more quickly than if you're going into new markets where you've got to establish yourselves with the services or products that you're providing. And then breakthrough is, of course, the riskiest. So we look to make sure that we have a blend across each of these segments for the portfolio of innovations that we are pursuing at any particular point in time. So how do we go about this? Oh, I'm sorry, one more section, the challenge. So today we operate a large network. We have over 1,000 locations in over 100 countries. We provide services from 45,000 employees in 80 plus languages. We have a lot of diversity based on market makeup, based on cultural distinctions across our network. We support 3 different sectors of products, trade, and resources, which have unique characteristics. And then we provide our services of assurance, testing, inspection, and certification. And these are provided at the global level for many of our global clients, but also we have a lot of local businesses that are highly bespoke to a specific area. An example of that would be a fisheries service down in Chile, where we're helping monitor basically the fishing industry to make sure they don't exploit the ocean around Chile. So lots of services at the global level, the local level. And what this means, if you think about that broad network, is that, and we have people innovating, 45,000 people thinking about new ways of doing things every day in all of our markets. And one of the challenges for a company like ours is to be able to identify those that have the potential to scale across the group, either across a particular business line or business sector or industry, or to even jump industries. So one of the biggest challenges and one of the reasons that we set up the centralized innovation function is to be that connector across our groups, across our business lines, industries, and geographies. We have a huge portfolio of services linked by our top line services, and there are opportunities to leverage from one inspection team to another inspection team. One may support oil and gas, another supports customs, another supports product exports as distinct from customs. So we have a lot of different services in the inspection space. In the testing, similarly, our product testing versus our chemical testing, there are relationships. If we think about chemical testing of products versus chemical testing of crude oil, a lot of those processes are similar. A lot of the instruments we use are similar. So innovations can be shared, but the businesses aren't directly connected on a day-to-day basis. So again, that central function helps to bridge the gap across those just different entities within our business. So that kind of frames up the opportunity, which is massive for everybody today, and also the challenge that we face in how we identify and get the benefits and leverage of our innovative opportunities, and then also how do we implement those consistently. So we've taken a broad approach on innovation, and I read an article recently from the Harvard Business Review that resonated with me quite well, and it was by an author, Gary Pisano, called The Hard Truth About Innovation Cultures, and he was looking at what makes a really great innovation culture. And they did a survey of a bunch of folks, and the things that people like about innovations are the ones listed on the left-hand column here. So tolerance for failure, so people are very open to trial and error, willingness to experiment. Psychological safety, so you're not going to be at risk of being judged poorly for failure of a particular initiative that you pursue or innovation that you pursue. Very collaborative and a very flat organizational structure. But for innovation companies, according to Pisano, to be effective, and if you look at some of the more effective companies like Google and Apple, they have a complete intolerance for incompetence. So that there's that balance between the tolerance for failure and the intolerance for people who aren't performing. Willingness to experiment, but also a rigorous discipline. So you have to have structure around those experiments, not to contain them, but to actually take advantage of the benefits that they can generate for you. Psychological safety balanced with brutal candor. So if something's not working, cut it quickly. If something is working, other people don't like it, push it forward with enthusiasm. And then collaboration, a lot of times you end up with lots of people participating in a particular innovation, but there's not that individual accountability for who is ultimately responsible to make sure this thing goes through all the stages of development and is effectively implemented in the market. And then the flat organization is balanced out by strong leadership. So I recommend that article. It's a pretty short read, but I thought the tenets underpinning his messages were quite compelling and resonated with how we've been approaching innovation. And if I summarize that, I basically describe innovation as about 40% creativity and 60% discipline. So then we developed a central innovation team, not to go into a bunch of detail here, but the role of the team is to lay the foundations for innovation at Intertek, which is what that means is, because we've been an innovative company from the start, what that means is how do we get better value out of the innovations that we pursue? How do we share? How do we leverage? And how do we make sure they deliver to the commitments that were made when we decided to make the investment up front? The team is meant to help develop new ideas, some of the investigations of new technologies, artificial intelligence, blockchain, those types of things are incubated with this particular team. We support local and group-wide initiatives, develop the culture, and culture is very much around the activities that relate to to the communications between our people. So if people have ideas that they're bringing to the table, it's really important that you're very responsive to those and that they don't sit in a box and not get, not be given feedback for 1 to 2 months. So we put the parameters around what does it mean to manage innovation across the group. What are the responsibilities of the supervisors, the managers, the country managers, the business line leaders when their team members are bringing new ideas to them? Focus as well. So what are the areas that the company wants to focus on in terms of innovation? And then we will help everybody implement across the group. So we've got particular skill sets we were looking for, pioneering mindsets, innovative mindsets, really good strength in networking and results oriented. So again, that balance between creativity, discipline, and then the other thing for our group is that you have to be pretty well networked so that you can make those connections across the group. We've set the team up as a virtual team. I have 3 team members, so it's a pretty small group by design. One is in Hong Kong, one in the US, and one in India, connecting our different regions, and we're looking to expand to a 4th individual that will be focused predominantly on our ECA territories. So 12 to 18 months secondment. We didn't want to have this group become an ivory tower that is disconnected from our customers. Our customers are our best source of ideas. And so this is intended to be a rotational team, a development opportunity for high performers across the group. And they've all been nominated by our senior leadership team, both at the executive level and our business line leaders across the group and country managers across the group. So this is the structure for the central team, which is helping drive our innovation program. We looked back at some of our more successful innovations and looked at the concepts that made those effective and successful. So what we distilled down for any particular innovation is that it needs to be a strategic priority for the group that is supporting it. You've got to have the right tone at the top. You've got to have the right management, leadership, and support for the new idea, because many times they require change in the organization, which is difficult. An engaged network. So in a company like ours, where we're operating across multiple geographies, multiple different business lines, we need a network to facilitate that communication. So as you can appreciate, 3 people in the center aren't going to do this. So we are engaged with a group of innovation champions. Those champions are designed uniquely to fit the structure of each of our entities. So in other words, it's not a one-size-fits-all organization. What the US needs is very different from what Bangladesh needs, is different from what Mozambique needs. So we tailor the network to make sure that we can have bidirectional communication. So pushing down what the priorities are for innovation areas, say turnaround time, if that's something we're focused on, or a new service implementation, like our recent anti-bribery ISO standard that we've recently rolled out. So what are the key programs being pushed from the center or pushed from a business line, and then also to feed up those ideas coming in from the field. So what is the frontline workforce seeing in terms of local market needs, local operation improvement opportunities that we can then share across the group. So really a two-way communication, and as champions are critical for that. We give them the support from the center, so we have regular weekly calls where they can come on board and ask questions, get clarification, share ideas with each other, share best practices, and our teams facilitate that. We have the core central team, which I've already described to you. We have a tool that is being implemented that is, we're using Planbox. That's not necessarily a promo for them, but they met the needs that we had identified that helps us facilitate both the idea generation, collaboration. It's got some gamification in it, which makes it a bit more fun for everybody who's engaged, but it also provides the ability to track and monitor what's happening around the group and that visibility. So a business line lead can see what's happening perhaps in some of the local offices that they may not connect with on a regular basis, so they can get new ideas from there and make sure that services are being consistently implemented, if you turn it around and go the other direction, across the group. Training is very targeted to the who needs what and when. And then we really have seen in our prior innovations, and well, actually prior programs, not just limited to innovation, that it's really important to pilot and then iterate. So learn from your mistakes, or if you identify areas that actually worked really well, how do you emphasize those in other programs going forward? And then of course, celebrating success. One of the other elements of our program is inverting the concept of inverting the pyramid. So really innovation begins with our customers and our local operations folks. And so we wanted to make sure that the program really reinforced that new services, new operational processes, the majority of those are likely to be coming from the field. So we wanted that area of focus within our leadership team, so they understood that they are there to provide focus, energy, enthusiasm, and the really strategic priorities of the group, but then how that gets applied and how it gets developed, apologies, are in the hands of our local folks. So we have clearly defined accountabilities. This is a top-level summary, but what we expect our country managers to do, what we expect our global business lines and functions to do, and then what we're going to be doing at the center. And really in the field, we're looking for the messages to be distributed. The cascade needs to be effective. We need local encouragement to innovate, local empowerment of employees to be given the opportunities and the time, if you will, to be able to think about new services and new ways of working. They're also responsible for the majority of our rewards program. We have a Global ATIC Innovation Award on an annual basis, but that needs to be a summary at the end of the year that kind of regular recognition is provided throughout, from both a country perspective for our geographies as well as a business line perspective. We have a process. This is a pretty high level one, shouldn't surprise anybody. These are the terms we've chosen, but developing from insights through the idea generation, evaluation and development, pilot, scale up, and then Kaizen. Two things that we've done here in the evaluate and develop stages, we've actually focused evaluate on the benefits case and develop on the cost and business case. And the reason we've done that is that we tend to find we're a very, very engineering focused firm, and the lead is generally, when we talk about new services, what's it going to cost us? So we've tried to have a mindset change embedded through our stage gate process that looks at how we get folks focused on the revenue opportunity or the cost savings opportunity, and then we look at what it takes to deliver and the cost for that, and is there a value in doing that, so that it helps people get excited about things, identify the value, and then go in and figure out whether it's something that we ought to do. There is, of course, some evaluation as we go through each of these stages to determine if there's if we think there's a case there. So we will have some of the assessments on, is it really big and therefore really costly upfront, but the focus of our energy is really designated between benefits and business or cost case. We support them through a series of activities, objectives, deliverables, and metrics in each one of these stages. And some of this is a bit proprietary, so I'm going to go through these quite quickly. But I wanted to just at least give you a sense for the types of activities that we have. So in our evaluate stage, where we're looking at will it work, we're looking at the key services and features of the new product, how it aligns with our strategy, what complexities we may be facing, target audiences and their opportunities for this, scope of the market potential, what's the customer experience, and the customer experience could be an operational experience if it's an operations platform or improvement area, and then defining the qualitative, quantitative benefits, competitive offerings, And then these are all prioritized based on a study of feasibility, desirability, and viability. Some of the metrics we're looking at include numbers of ideas promoted, rejected, the innovators involved, and potential value of those ideas. And it's important for us to look at what's been rejected as well, because that will give us a sense for how well we're applying our filters in terms of making sure we're focused on those ideas that have the greatest potential across the group. Each of these stages is supported by a set of templates that we have used to help people go through that thinking process. Most of these are driven from key questions that they should focus on answering in each of these stages to help, again, make sure that we're continuing to focus our efforts. It's much like a sales funnel. You start with the broad brush of leads, and that drives into opportunities, which drives into quotes, which drives, same thing with our innovation process in terms of the discipline to go through the process. Our governance model, this gets back to that Harvard Business Review article about the paradox of innovation and the blend of creativity and discipline. So we have responsibilities at each level of the organization with innovation hubs making the decisions on the prioritization. Those hubs can be at the GBL level or global business line level and in our country level. And so this supports the ideas coming up through the group, and it also supports the focus areas that we're pushing down through the organization. Tracking and monitoring, I mentioned the tool that we've got in place, so new ideas are captured in there. The collaboration and the gamification and the fun of it is facilitated through this, but at each stage of our process, we're capturing the critical information that we need to make decisions on what goes forward and what doesn't. And then this is one of the key areas where we actually get visibility to what's going on. So the business line leaders can see what's happening in their spaces. We can look across different industries and different markets to see what's happening and where people can gain value. We can start to see if multiple people are having the same idea on a particular product or service or on a different operational improvement. We can pull them together to help them collaborate on a single initiative rather than pursuing it in multiple different regions concurrently with significant duplication of effort. And then the reporting is up through the group, and it's real-time active as we go through the process. And then we also have developed RACIs as the teams go from insights through to Kaizen. There are, and this one was specific to digital type of opportunities because you've got 3 different groups who have different levels of accountability and responsibility throughout. So we've attempted to define that so we've got clarity at who owns the baton at a particular point in time. This is the way we work. It would be different for other organizations based on their structure. So then I guess I could pause now and see if there are any questions. We're going to go into some examples of what types of innovations have shown up at the local level versus at what we're running at the group level. We just have some examples for that. But let me pause for a minute and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Anne-Michelle. Okay, guys, as mentioned at the beginning of the session, if anyone does have any questions at this stage, please pop them in the Q&A chat room at the bottom of the screen. We'll pause for a minute, but if none of them pop up, then you can continue, Anne-Michelle, and if any do come as you go, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. And Rich, did you want to add anything?
I was going to say, I mean, I sit within one of the business lines, one of the global business lines, business assurance, and the whole innovation process. We have a mini team within our business line, which turns over 100 million or so, 150 million or so. And so what we've got with our targets, as Anne-Michelle showed all the structure of the process as well as the openness of the innovation, we often get one country will come up with a fantastic idea and their revenue will accelerate from that idea, and then the rest of the countries don't scale. So that focus on scaling those proven innovations is something that we do at a global level. And then the other thing we do is which is an interesting one, which is really focused this year as we go through, is now that we've got the more formalized tracking and monitoring of the innovations, it enables us to stretch the targets for the revenue every year as well. So you get the standard increase of revenue that you should be expecting as a growth business. But a lot of that is said, well, within there's innovation that drives that. And therefore it's beginning to get people to think about innovation is just part of the DNA, which enables us to grow the revenue. And it means that people then look for the collaboration and look for the other ideas, because they realize if they create one, they get 5 back. So it's something, again, it's very cultural and it takes time to embed in. But it's interesting over the past 12, 18 months as we really begin to push this further, it's beginning to come into the standard financial performance cycles that we have as well.
Thank you, Richard. And Michelle, I'm not sure if you can see that. There is a message from Martin Willis. Martin Willis is from Ecolab. Can you see the question on your screen?
I cannot.
Okay. If you hover your mouse, the navigation bar might pop up at the bottom and you'll see there's a notification on the Q&A tab. It might just be easier for you to read the question back.
I was going to say, I can read it out if it's easier.
Fine.
So it says, did you do any education on innovation and what it means and the definition? And then it says, in a technical organization, I find engineers often focus on new products or equipment rather than all the various strands of innovation and could possibly miss value for the customers. And Michelle, before you dive into that second bit, I'll give you a classic example. Again, I came from a group function and joined the business line, and the business line had, I think, 15 to 20 really solid, innovative ideas, and they were across those 7 stages. And the first thing we did was, okay, let's review them. And it was fascinating. Again, technical resources, they'd all gone to development and they were already developing and piloting. And I went through them and said, okay, where's the business value? Where's the customer value? Where's the customer value? And we dropped 50% of them straight away. So that discipline of being really focused and disciplined on looking at the valuation and the value to the customer or the value to or the increase in margin was something that was really critical. So it sounds like your organization is very similar. And that was something which Michelle and the group have done is we've regularly shared at town halls with material, with the country, with that organization structure. We've shared how we cascade what innovation is and how you get there, because it's quite it's a process. The idea is the seed, but then you've got to grow it as it goes forward.
I would just build on that too. We acquired a business, Alchemy Systems, back in July last year, and it's an employee engagement, learning, and performance improvement technology company. And one of the key concepts that is really being driven in the learning and engagement space is that learning at the point of need. So we have done some training across the group. And when I said in one of my early slides that the training is very targeted, some of it is just reinforcement of that focus that needs to be happening at each stage of the innovation process. And the guidance we give them in Ideate in terms of how they think about their ideas, and the guidance we give them in terms of what they need to do with Evaluate. And my comments, and you raised it rightly, with a technical organization, you have people going straight to the solution without thinking about the customer. So all of the questions that are in, and the detailed questions beneath that are embedded in the templates in that Evaluate stage are designed to facilitate that discussion about the customer, about the market, about its relevance, the value proposition, the USP, those key components, so that those form part of the case that folks have to make. And it has been very interesting as they learn how to think about new product development or new service development. It's eye-opening, but we're really trying to do that again at the point of need, so that as they go through that, because you're not easily going to change the mindset of somebody who is 20 years experience and has always done things in a particular way. But if you give them a framework to work through, it helps them think differently. And if they have to answer those questions to get through the stage gate, then it forces us to do that at that point when it's necessary. So I think we reinforce it through the tools, templates, and the process is how I would say we handle most of our training. And that is also what the champions and the central team do in terms of providing that local reinforcement of the way to think about innovation across the group. So there's definitely a cascade and a reinforcement where people can come in and get clarification on new challenges that we hadn't thought of before. So hopefully that helps with your question. Were there other questions that popped in since I can't see?
No other direct questions. Okay. Martin said thank you for the explanation.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's get into a couple of examples. So these three are examples that have come up locally. They can originate from either research that's brought to us from government institutions or universities, as you see here. An interesting one that I found is this antibacterial biodegradable new fiber called chitosan. And chitosan is made from the exoskeletons of crustaceans. So in the future, we will be wearing garments, or we will be in sheets in hospital beds, hopefully not very frequently, that are developed using the fiber of chitosan because of its antibacterial properties. So we've been working with the Hong Kong Research Institute of Textiles and Apparel to help develop standards and testing around this new material as it goes to market, so that we can determine, one, the effectiveness of the antibacterial properties and the claims that they're making associated with that, as well as just how much chitosan is in a composition that might also include some cotton or other fibers. So, and it's also biodegradable. It is a biodegraded product, I guess. So that's been an interesting one that has come up through our local lab supporting the textiles industry in the Hong Kong area. Thermoconductive. This one's interesting as they put heat into fabrics. We've been working with the, again, Hong Kong Polytechnic University to develop the standards around this. And this is an interesting collaboration between our textiles group, our electrical group, and our hard goods group, which don't always work together on a day-to-day basis with their clients, but for new products that are coming to market, there's a lot of overlap now between those three teams, as well as our connected world, which focuses on IoT and cyber and anything that communicates up through the cloud. Anti-radiation is a new fabric that, well, not that new anymore, but a new area that we're working on to determine the effectiveness of new clothing that protects your devices, your credit cards, et cetera, from being stolen by scanners. So these are ones, this is the type of thing that comes up at the local level and then has the opportunity to expand across the group. These are three that we are monitoring and supporting at the moment. On a more technical level, we have a couple that I find interesting for two reasons. Deep View and Interpret. These are in the oil and gas space, as you might identify from the photo on the screen here. Interpret is a big data application, hardware, and database that we have created over the last 8 years that focuses on quality and quantity of hydrocarbons. It started in support of our North Sea operations, where we're able to identify if you have the crude that arrives at a testing facility, we can actually, with about a 90+% accuracy, determine which well it came out of based on the hydrocarbon content through the database. So that technology is interesting in that it was an innovation that started in our Aberdeen location, and now it's being expanded across the group. But also we have seen its applicability in other areas where you're looking at carbon footprints. So it's extended into potatoes, it's extended into honey. And so that's an example of where we've taken one innovation, and it could have stayed contained in our oil and gas space and done quite well, but we've actually identified opportunities for it in the food industry. And so that's an interesting expansion. Deep View is similar. Deep View is a technology that takes some fairly standard, easily accessible technologies out there and overlays them to create a digital twin of say, an offshore drilling rig. And they're able to do a couple of things with this. One, they're able to take the manufactured unit and compare it back to the drawing, so you get a baseline, and then you can use it to monitor the asset over time to help determine better maintenance schedules and standards, and to look at where there are potential upcoming opportunities for failures, so that they can maybe accelerate maintenance as needed. And this one is also an interesting expansion, initially focused in offshore only. Now we're looking at it for technology that can be used in our building and construction group with, say, elevators. So an interesting opportunity to hop industries with these two technologies. Some of our other services, the upper left-hand corner, the voice of the consumer, this was originally identified in our Italian practice, and these guys are correlating audit results, inspection results, testing results of particular products with social media. That data has been provided to us by the customer, and we're correlating all of that to help them identify where they need to make changes in their products, where they're finding quality issues and the like, and what the consumer's perspective is on the areas they need to focus on. So that's been an interesting service that was, again, identified based on a specific customer opportunity, and now we're looking at the extensibility across the rest of our markets. The other two, the cybersecurity services and product sustainability, these were group-led initiatives that are results to market trends, and I think it's pretty straightforward to see which market trends we're addressing. But these were ones that have a cross-business line and cross-geographic opportunity from the start. So those are the types of services that we identify to develop at the group level, rather than just at the local customer or geographic level. And now I'm going to turn over to Rich to talk about a couple that we have at the group-wide level that have been innovated within his function. So Rich, over to you.
So on this one, what we were looking at within the business assurance part of Intertek, we obviously complete a lot of system certification work, so ISO standards, and we do also do a lot of supply chain assessments, so monitoring an organization's supply chain against their corporate objectives. And clearly with any of these, where we've got a quality goal or any corporate objective, having the vision is the key thing. So, within Intertek, making the world a safer place is our vision, and all the innovations tied to that. And that helps keep the focus and keeps everyone aligned. So the first step of anything is having the vision on what is the corporate goal, where are the risks that the organization's got, and what are they doing about it. And traditionally, within our business, we test against the standards that the companies ask for. We will do some inspections, we will do some audits, and they are always backward looking and say, okay, yes, it meets the requirement. And that's the way it's always been done. And maybe if we can just flick to the next slide. And what we realized, and what as the market changes, is that step one's great, having a vision is fine, but effectively communicating, tracking, and driving action against those corporate goals was the bit that was missing. So what you see here is a slide whereby you can have your corporate goals, and it could be any one of them. It could be working conditions, it could be modern slavery, anti-bribery, any of those types of things, as well as product safety as you go through it. But the first thing is saying, do you understand your supply chain or your organization structure? What does that organization think against the standards that you shared with them? If they don't understand it, how do you assure the people? So if people don't understand it, then you've got to make sure the training and the engagement is there so that they can. Quality won't just arrive on its own. And then, of course, you've got all the classic services that a TIC industry used to do, which is the testing inspection. So we looked at this as the market changed and said, well, the testing inspection is fine, but it's quite a long way down the value chain before you find out a problem's happened. So we flipped it completely using digital tools in Intertek Inlight, which enables us to map the supply chain, do self-assessment questionnaires, and immediately from that drive lessons and learning, which drives the training which enables suppliers and companies to improve. And of course, all of that pops out, as a lot of things can now, into a cockpit and a dashboard, which highlights the critical areas where we've got to go. So what we did in this space, this is an innovation that's built over the past 2 or 3 years, I guess. But the original vision was that not everyone wants to go and do an inspection of every one of their suppliers, because they might have 5,000 suppliers, and at £1,000 an inspection, it becomes a very expensive exercise to be able to validate that all of your suppliers don't have issues. So we flipped it and almost disrupted our own industry by saying, well, let's do the self-assessment. Let's start using risk assessments to be able to filter that out as we go through. And then, of course, once you do that, you say, well, how do you drive the action sooner? And the action's got to be done locally, which is where the people assurance. So we took the Alchemy acquisition and the learning management systems and solutions we've got, and we brought those in along with the digital self-assessment, along with the audits. And effectively, the innovation is the combination of services, which gives the customer a risk dashboard or a total quality assurance cockpit.
Thank you. And you raised something that I forgot to mention on the Deep View and the Interpret in our oil and gas space. Is those two technologies were quite disruptive to the way we work. Interpret, as an example, does in a matter of minutes what our legacy analytical services in the chemical laboratory space has done in 1 to 2 weeks. So we've been able to turn around the data that our customers need in minutes rather than weeks. And those are interesting ones because of the change management challenges as you look at the way technology is adjusting our abilities to get to information faster. That does change your revenue and your operating models in your company, which, there's quite a lot of, there's lots of different terms for it. But the antibodies against new ideas that exist in the organization because people don't want to change, they see risks to their business. So one of the things we're able to do with the new group structure is to be able to help see those new opportunities and push them out into the rest of the group, even against the tide of against the tide. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So,
and I would build on it as well as you go through all of this. The other bit that the structured process helps with as you go through as well is upfront understanding what the value is. The idea of, for example, Interpret, where you put something on top of a pipe, which then tells you where all the oil came from, is fantastic. And the technical guys love it. Of course, you then look at what's the commercial and there's revenue to it, but then you've got to look at the bits of where's the disruption as well. And then you've also got to look with Inlight and the data services and the training services we've now got is what's the organization required to deliver these services. So by having the ideas coming through and then filtered for the real value, and even those that are going to disrupt our value are good, because then we understand how do we need to change our organization. So as we go through the very disciplined approach of looking at the innovations, it forces us to consider organization impact, revenue impact, margin improvement, all the different elements, and hence it enables us to prioritize and build the right risk mitigants if we need to as well. So it's interesting that both driving revenue and also protecting revenue, it's a good mechanism if you've got a structured process.
Thank you. Okay, the last one was actually an internal innovation, and this is our 5x5, what we call metrics for performance management. This is an internal initiative, but it really looks at the key drivers for what makes our business effective. And the point here was, which Rich just made quite well, is the organizational structure required to support the change and the changes you may need in what people do on a day-to-day basis to deliver evolve as you implement new programs, and those need to be managed through an effective network. So that's been critical, and that ties back into the discipline. So this is the last slide that I prepared, besides the thank you and any questions. So let me just pause, and again, thank you all for your time. I hope this has been helpful, or at least given you a few things to think about, and I'll be happy to take any questions, either Rich or myself.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you, Richard, for your contribution. I know there was a few people that said that they had to shoot off a little bit early. I've had a couple of people ask if we can share the presentation with them, and you and I will go through a revised version that you're happy to share
Sure.
after the session takes place. But for those of you who are live on the session, I think we have 7 or 8 minutes left. Is there any direct questions for either Anne-Michelle or Richard before we leave?
Oh, I just found the question panel. It's at the top, not the bottom.
Oh, is it? Okay, it might be the other way around for you. Okay, we'll wait another minute, and if nobody has any direct questions, we will share a revised version with the people that are on the call. And if anyone has any direct questions for you, Anne-Michelle or Richard, they can communicate that with me. And if you're happy for me to make the introduction, maybe you can follow up with them directly. That's often the case for people that, you know, wasn't able to be with us for the entire session.
No, that'd be great. That'd be great. And I saw that a couple of the team was sort of saying that they've developed similar approaches.
Yeah.
Again, any ideas that you guys have got that you think have worked very well for you, then, you know, we're always happy to improve what we've got and share what we're doing as well, because I think this sort of stuff benefits all organizations. So do feel free to reach out, and we can certainly share thoughts and learn from yourselves as well.
Okay, great.
A collaborative global. It's gone from a global economy now to a global network. So happy to work together to make things better for both of us.
Okay, brilliant. Well, no more questions seem to be popping up. So really appreciate your time this afternoon, guys. Well, the morning for you and Michelle. But we'll speak together to get a recorded, revised version out to the people that wasn't able to join, and for the people that missed the session. And I will communicate with you any direct questions for you guys to follow up.
Great. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.